Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LeanTossup College Football Podcast, the sharpest college football podcast. My name is Robert Martin, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host BuckMetrics. How are you doing tonight on this Tuesday night before we get Kazakhstan? I think is
Cusaction, yeah.
Kazakhstan. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward next week to, I guess, kind of like live potting during a Cusaction game.
Yes, that's
Um,
true. Yeah.
yeah, I don't have screens for that. I don't know. Maybe I'll just kind of do like I'm a college student and watch on my phone and pretend to be paying attention to you.
Yeah, or I actually find a tablet works very well. I have to pull out my tablet for next week. I'm gonna be sitting here. You're gonna see like a green glow on my face and be like, "Yeah, I wonder what that is." Um, so last week, a, overall a good week. Some pain there with Kansas. That was,
Yeah,
uh, and it's
keep
not.
going. There was a
Yeah,
worse one than that.
Kansas was the Duke one was bad too for the
Yeah,
simple reason that it's just like they didn't even need to score a touchdown. That was
yeah,
arguably the wrong play to try to
yeah,
score a touchdown there. They had a lead, they came back, and it's even worse. Oh no, it was okay because I live bet Duke plus 8.5, and then the money line, which would have been amazing to hit. I got to cash the 8.5. Thank God for that. It could save me a little bit there, but again, just the Duke one was brutal. Again, poor Jalen Daniels. I feel so bad for Kansas. Like, that's so sad. I feel really bad for them. I feel like this should have been their moment. And I mean, okay, maybe they would. Had Jalen Daniels played, they definitely would have covered the spread. I'll say that. Maybe not win, but it would have been a much closer game. And you can't really say exactly what would have happened there. But
yeah.
stuff happens there. And I think overall everything else was we had a lot. We had some iffy ones, but a lot of others did hit on there. So let's talk about the week that was.
Okay, all right. Who won the week? I actually didn't expect this until I was kind of just looking to look back on Sunday night. I have Maryland winning the week. They're sneaky good. In part two, we'll get in a little more specifics on just how quantifiably good they are. So they beat Indiana 44-17. This is always a good sign that you've really kicked somebody's butt. Indiana fired their offensive coordinator after the game. They're 5-0, Maryland is, and they've got the really nice balance here. I've got them rated 15th in FBS overall, third in the Big Ten East. That means they're ahead of one of the big three. The quarterback, I've got 26th nationally in Apex, and their ground game I have is 45th. Defensive ground game 37th, and defensive Apex 15th. That's, it's not going to happen, but that's kind of a lesser version of when I've looked back at like what's the resume that wins a division a lot of the time. It's just these well-balanced teams that aren't like just exceptional at something and kind of bad at something else. Looking at you, my alma mater, USC. This is the kind of team that is going to make a lot of trouble for one of the big three in the Big Ten East.
Yeah, and that could come as soon as this week. I don't know for a fact, but I feel like we're going to talk about that game later. But yeah, no, Maryland is pretty good. So basically what happens is it's either late Friday night or early Saturday morning at like 1 or 2 a.m. Eastern time where I basically go through the lines and I go through my model and I'm like, okay, because usually I collect my winnings from late Friday night college football games. And I'm like, all right, what have I got here? And I'm like, oh man, I have Maryland favored by a lot over Indiana. And I basically it was like minus 14 or 14 and a half even. And I'm like, okay, I'll throw something on that. And that was just over. That wasn't even close. Yeah. And that, like, so basically there's a lot of times where I just find plays like that where I'm like, what does my model say? And it's like, oh, okay, I should bet that. And yeah, that was one of them. And I can't, like, it's been weird. I've had this kind of weird love-hate relationship with this Maryland team. They have both at times looked amazing and horrible early on this year. There was the time when they couldn't put away Charlotte until late. They also couldn't put away Virginia until late as well. Basically, there was 2 straight games when they were down 14-0 early in both of those games, and then somehow came back to win those games. And I think cover the spread against Virginia, but didn't cover the spread against Charlotte. don't
Yeah.
think. I can't remember, but
I
it was
don't think that
close
was.
either
Yeah,
way.
I don't
But
think they were. Yeah.
no, but either way though, and I'm like, oh, okay, this team is bad. And then I can't remember if I bet them last week or not. Like, no, not last week, yes, but 2 weeks ago, I can't remember if I bet them or not. I don't think I did. But then I had them over Indiana, and I'm like, Indiana is not particularly good, so I took them again, and sure enough, yeah, they're pretty good, and I think that that line with them versus Ohio State is a little weird. I think Ohio State is getting a little too much credit for beating up one Western Kentucky, which is not the most exciting win ever. You beat up a Conference USA team specifically by beating them to death through the air. So, okay, great. You beat up a bunch of cornerbacks that were never going to the NFL anyway, so good job. And then also by winning a last second touchdown against Notre Dame, which, to be fair, Notre Dame's now played 2 straight weeks in which they've basically needed a
Yeah.
last second, they basically lost in a last second score and then needed the last second score to win the game. So, don't think Notre Dame is like a pitch perfect team here. This team definitely has some problems here. So I think it's the name, it's the fact that they usually beat Maryland. I don't think they play. I can't remember if they played Ohio State last year or not. I don't think they did.
Yeah,
And
they
I
would have because they're both in the East.
oh yes they would have. I remember they covered against Michigan though. I'm not sure. I can't remember if they covered against. Let me check. Actually, I have my Phil still here. I'll check that when you talk about them here. But no, this team could be actually pretty good. I mean, Taliaga, no, see, I keep Tungafailoa because it's Tungafailoa. That's the NFL quarterback, and it's Tulia Tungafailoa. That's his brother. He's actually pretty good, and he has a non-zero chance of becoming an NFL quarterback at some point. And he's pretty good. He's pretty good. You have him ranked third in the Big Ten East. I'd be interested to know which is the other because that's also with Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. So which one do you have them as better as?
Can I say stay tuned to part 2? No, it's
Okay, yeah, no, we could do that, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got me there. I won't spoil it.
Yeah, okay. So I'm interested to see that. So then, yeah, I think I kind of like them too as a pick. So, okay, let's see. Did they cover last year against Ohio State? Yeah, they did. They only lost by 13 when the spread was 27. So the spread is 7 points-ish, depending on when you've bet it or not. The spread is only 7 points less from Ohio State losing another wide receiver and their quarterback from last year. That seems not correct. But
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll probably talk about them part 2.
yeah.
Did you have a winner for the week?
I think I'm going to go on orthodox here. I think before I said Colorado lost the week when they failed to cover a 23-point spread against Colorado State. I'm going to say they won the week by only losing to USC by 7. The thing is, like, that was actually pretty insane. They kept that game very competitive, and it scared a lot of people off of USC. My model still likes USC because I think my model just says Caleb Williams can just score a billion points and it doesn't matter. And that's kind of correct because he can just score a billion points and it doesn't matter. Which is kind of funny because, and you're hearing a lot of people in the media being like, well, you know, I saw Andy Staples talking about this, and it is fair. This isn't a criticism of Andy Staples at all, and a lot of other people are saying this too. It's like, the defense, and like 1,000%, that is a massive question mark. But if you can just keep scoring points, it doesn't matter. So I think, like, if you score 50, it doesn't matter if you let them score 40, right? And that's the thing. So I think at the end of the day, that's all that matters is just scoring more points than your opponent. And if you can score on every drive and you stop them on one drive, then you win the game. So, no, but I'm also going to give it to Colorado. I mean, the thing is they got absolutely annihilated by Oregon last week, a complete domination. And then they turn around and they say, okay, look, we are not dead. We are actually a good team. And my mom, I didn't bet it. My mom, I actually, for this game, I just bet over Shedeur Sanders passing touchdowns over 2.5, and then Caleb Williams over 3.5. Cashed both of those. I didn't bet the spread, just because for the simple reason that it was like 21.5, and I figured it was going to be some sort of weird thing where like, oh, maybe like, because you don't want to be like they march on the field for a garbage time one when they're down 28, and I didn't want that. So I just decided to bet that instead, and that was definitely the correct response. So I think it's very interesting. I think this Colorado team is still and this is the thing, right? I think a lot of people are maybe trying to write them off. Okay, maybe they're not the top team in the country. Okay, that's fine. But they are still among the better team, one of the better teams in the country. They're probably still like a fringe top 25, top 30, top 40 team. A team that will go to a bowl game, probably a relatively good bowl game, and that while they can't challenge for a national championship this year due to their defense and horrific offensive line, give them a year, give them a couple more years. They basically brought in an entire new program off Deion Sanders. Okay, what happens when they actually start recruiting players? What happens when they actually start bringing in
Yeah.
and they develop their own players, right? Like, okay, basically you bring in a bunch of transfer players. Okay, that's fine. You have to hit on every single one of them. If you're like, oh, we think this guy's amazing and he doesn't turn out, well, there's no backup. It's like, well, this guy's still going, and that's clearly what's happened with the offensive line there. So, yeah, like give Dion some time, and I think this, assuming he stays at Colorado, but I think this Colorado team could be like, watch out for Colorado next year in whatever the Big 12 decides to do for divisions slash not divisions slash I have no idea, but whatever. But watch out for them in the Big 12 next year.
Yeah, I agree. Three points that you kind of brought to mind here. Colorado did have every reason to quit, and they didn't. This game really highlighted too. People will just. I can't say the USC defense is bad because they will be. Their personality is that they are good until they're not, and the real weakness is once they're not, they can't regroup. It's just like, okay, it's imploded today. Now we're done. Now we can't make a stop. Now we can't tackle. Now we can't do this. Now we can't do that. Which is not ideal, but it's not like, okay, from the start we stink. It's just at some point they stink, which is going to be interesting when we get to later in the season. I kind of thought about something that actually might work in their favor in a very weird way. And as far as Colorado, in the future, I'm really, really glad my team doesn't have to face them going forward, because once he gets more of a roster full of his caliber of players, that's not going to be a fun team to play. And like we said in the Pac-12 preview, his hiring of Sean Lewis was really, really crafty, and you're seeing that. Doesn't have an offensive line; they're scoring like high 30s in each game on average. So, yeah, glad that I'm not in their future.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Who lost the week? Man, this was just insane. UCF. My goodness, guys. So they take a 20. You just say it out loud and it's hilarious. They take a 28-point lead with 23 minutes left in the game. Baylor field goal, UCF interception, which leads to a Baylor touchdown. Then UCF punts after a 4-play drive. Then Baylor gets another touchdown. Then UCF fumbles and Baylor returns that for a touchdown. Then UCF has a 0-yard drive and they punt after a 3-and-out. Baylor gets a field goal with 1:21 left to take a 1-point lead. Then UCF misses a 59-yard field goal as time expires. After, did you see this crazy play where it's 4th and forever, and the backup UCF quarterback, because John Rice Plumlee is out, he ran backwards like 30 yards, like into the end zone, and made this.
I did.
You
hadn't
have
seen
to
that.
look
No.
for it.
Okay,
It
I will see
is
that.
nuts. It's nuts. Yeah, anybody that didn't see it, find it on YouTube or whatever Twitter is called these days. It's crazy, and it's just it's tough to make a 59-yard field goal as time expires, but to convert that after all that and then miss that field goal, just brutal loss. Man, that was, I don't know. It doesn't get much worse than that. I'd just rather just not have a chance than blow a lead of that size. That could ruin your season.
That is rough. And the thing was, this was one of the ones I actually forgot to bet. I think I had UCF as like big favorites in the game. I think they were only like 5.5-point favorites or something like that. And like I was watching this live, I'm like, oh man, should have bet that one. That's one I missed to bet that one. Should have bet that one. And then I was like, I just kept following it. I kept getting closer. I'm like, what? I'm like, no, they're gonna put this away. They're gonna put this away. And like I'm like, I have no stake in this. I'm just like, what just happened? And it's just, that was crazy. Like when we think Baylor is one of the worst teams in college football, I still kind of think they are. I just have no idea what happened. Just a complete breakdown there by UCF.
Yeah.
Again, again, there was a couple of these with Auburn. That's one of the reasons why Gus Malzahn is the head coach of UCF and not Auburn currently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but no, that's just one of the crazier, just complete breakdowns uh, that we've seen for sure. I think that one is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have a loser this week?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Nebraska for just giving us the giant middle finger of us saying like, oh, you know what? Maybe they could be competitive with Michigan. Nope. That was I have no idea what that was. It's funny because they I'm not sure if they benched Jeff Sims or if he's injured. I don't know which one that is. But they're like, oh, we have another not Jeff Sim who can like run and pass the ball. And it's like, oh, he does the same thing as Jeff Sims, except he's just not Jeff Sims. So I'm like, well, that's potentially promising. That sounds like okay. And then they just literally do nothing, and they just get I think they scored eventually. I think right.
They scored, yeah.
Yeah, but it was like a sad touchdown at the end. I
Yeah.
think.
No,
yeah,
it was very much I think it was a sympathy / pity touchdown.
Yeah, it was not particularly good. So yeah, it was pretty brutal there. Yeah, that was pretty rough. I thought that maybe like we were like, oh, Michigan's not particularly good. Maybe Nebraska can finally take this opportunity to put them away. And nope. They're
No.
gonna they're just. Or not, I mean, I think they were going to win. I thought the spread was like the spread was like what 17 or something.
18, I think is what we had it
18,
at.
yeah. Like multiple scores. I'm like, you can keep within a couple scores, but no, Michigan just decided to explode. Now, my model's still not particularly high on Michigan. I don't think they're still amazing. Yeah. I think again now you're seeing that, and you're seeing Minnesota struggling. Minnesota again, they didn't cover the spread against UL. They basically pushed it, which is good because that was one of the last ones. That was a late Friday night bet for me as well. I got it at 11 and then it pushed. But then I bet that at 11 and then woke up the next morning and it was 9. I'm like, oh, okay, we're good. We got closing line value. And that again did not work out. And we got the push, so it doesn't really matter that much. But still, though, that was another one where it's like, but I think we're seeing Minnesota's not good, and then that has knock-on effects to, okay, Nebraska, who lost to them, isn't that good, and all that stuff. So I think we're seeing that, okay, maybe this is not Nebraska's year, and this is also definitely not Minnesota's year either. So, yeah.
Well, given that, you know what? Crazy to say, I wouldn't count Nebraska out of the Big Ten West.
Maybe.
I can't dismiss anybody in that division so far. It's just who's going to run away with it.
That is true.
I can't see it. Yeah, I mean everybody's like very flawed. Okay, my victory lap. This if we go back 1 week ago to the end of part 1, when I said I sneakily have a crush on a certain team, and then you told me, hey, guess what? Tony Elliott's not going to start Anthony Colandre. He's going to start that Tony Muskett bum. So,
yeah.
And I just said, okay, that's it. That's into part 1. See y'all in part 2. So, what do you hear about, when you talk about winning at the highest level? It's like you've got to be ruthless. So, Colandre had a 129 apex, and this is his first 3 career starts against JMU, who's a very good defense, Maryland, who's a good defense this season. NC State's not great, but on average, those 3 teams have a composite 96 apex, defensive apex. So he's way exceeding expectations, and this is his first 3 starts as a college quarterback. So now he gets a break against a horrible BC defense. Defensive apex of 195. Basically, they're making everybody look like Michael Penix. And what does Tony Elliott do? He goes back to Tony Muskett. And what does Tony Muskett do? He gets an 87 apex in a loss to this game, to these bums at Boston College. Virginia was 3 of 12 on 3rd and 4th down coming into the game. BC had been giving up 50% on 3rd and 4th down. Just, I don't know. It's not like Muskett was on the team last year. He transferred in from Monmouth, so it's not like he's coming from some great program where we know that he's just going to tear it up. To the contrary, it's pretty clear he's not going to tear it up. More specifically, it's pretty clear that he's just not a good quarterback at this level. Um, I don't get it. I don't get the loyalty here. I think this makes Elliott 3-12 now as a head coach. The loyalty to this guy, and just the nice guy routine. Great. I'm glad you're a good human being. God bless you. You might not be made out to be a head coach, because you cannot give up the opportunity for a win like this and a chance to really take a huge step forward in developing your program and blow it to Boston College. I mean, we called the coach Jeff Half-Life like 3 weeks ago when, they're losing every game in the stupidest ways possible. He's probably one of the first coaches fired this season. But for this, and now maybe this is some, game theory where Tony Elliott's trying to keep Jeff Halfley in Boston College, so he knows at some point he'll have a win on the schedule. I don't know. None of it makes sense. Last point is, we've talked about several times, there's a lot of good coaches who didn't really succeed as head coaches just because they never had a good quarterback. And you've got your quarterback. What are you doing? There's so many good coaches that would never make this mistake, and this guy made the mistake. I don't get it. Okay, end of sermon.
Yeah. One thing I will say, and that does not in any way negate anything you said, and does not in any way make this in any way less dumb. But Tony Elliott apparently said, there was a quote, I think basically after the first game in which Tony Muskett got injured. He said, quote, "Guys don't lose jobs due to injury." Which, okay, that's great to put up on a bulletin board somewhere. But that's not
Great.
Then you're okay.
Go coach AYSO then, okay?
Yeah. Put that on a bulletin board, and then you give him a couple drives, and you're like, interception. Okay, we need some youth. There are ways you can do it, guys. You didn't sign a blood pact with Tony Muskett here. This isn't like he has to start. If not, now, one thing I will say potentially, and again, I don't agree with this, but there's a potential chance that Tony Elliott feels that that Muskett is better with the ball, maybe won't turn it away. Colandrea did have some interceptions, a couple of bad ones. I think there was one particular where he threw it to triple coverage. Now, that's aggression. That's not necessarily bad. And as you develop a young quarterback, you can work with that. But if you don't have a guy who takes those shots, you're never going to get your chance to be put into a situation in that game. Now, maybe they're going to turn around and put Colandrea back in for this game. Hopefully. I'd hope so. I don't know. But there's a lot of guys who are like, no, a turnover is bad. We can never allow turnovers. Therefore, the person who turns the ball over the most cannot play. And that's an offensive. That's basically a philosophy that I don't necessarily agree with, but that's what a lot of people think. So I am not the most happy with that, but I think it's it kind of is what it is. So I hope we see Colandrea more, and hopefully it will. Hopefully this is it for Muskett. Because again, they had a lead in that game, and they basically stopped being aggressive, and they let Boston College back into the game. They're up 14-3 at one point, and they were underdogs in this game, I believe. Or no, were they favorites? I can't remember. Let me check that. Because I remember I didn't bet this game because I had this game exactly as it was. The line I had was exactly what it was. So I'm just I'm not touching that.
Let me see if I can find it.
Let me find that. Are they not playing? They might not be playing this week. Okay. Let's go back here. Because I remember not touching this game because I was like, that line is exactly what I have. It was Boston College -5. So Boston, I think I had Boston College -3. So but again though, he had 3 passing touchdowns. But again he had an interception too, right? So they lost the drive. They had a lead here. What was it? Yeah, it was 14-0, 14-7, 21-10. But then they basically it was touchdown, interception, touchdown, then it's 24-21, and then a couple of field goals, and then that's it. That's the game, right? So this is what happens when you're like, no, we got to go with the guy who protects the ball. Well, there you go, right? So
he didn't protect the ball. And one other thing, just I've not gotten into the whole nuts and bolts of it. Apex actually does account for interceptions. It basically counts them as a big negative yardage play. I'll put it that way. So when you see, and it's my numbers, and I'm not saying my numbers are perfect, but yeah, Colandrea's throwing some picks. Guess what? He's more than making up for it with the yardage. And if I'm going to take a young guy, I'd rather take somebody that is able to throw deep and complete deep and just has interceptions, which work their way out of the system, than rather some guy that's scared to work deep and is going to take a lot more hand holding to develop. I mean, you can just, that Colandrea is going to be a much better, long term and medium term, let alone near term. I mean, I don't get it. Don't lose your, guess what? How about this? You just say you didn't lose your job to injury. You lost it to a better player. Okay. I mean, because it's clearly, I don't know. Okay. I'm done picking on Tony Elliott because he's a good guy. So this is a victory lap because I was absolutely right at the end of part one. So do you have a victory lap for this week?
I had one. We could, I had one and then we went on this whole rant about Anthony Colandrea. No, it's all good. I don't have it right now. Maybe I'll bring it up later. All right. Okay. What is stuff we missed?
All right. Yeah. What I missed, Byron Brown, the South Florida quarterback, I hadn't really heard of him before because when I'm previewing 130 teams, I basically just look at the first name on the depth chart in the Phil Steele guide. So this guy passed my attention because Phil had Gary Bohannon, a former Baylor quarterback, as the starter for South Florida. So he's a redshirt freshman. His head coach is Alex Golish, first-year guy who was the offensive coordinator for Tennessee last season, you might remember. So Mr. Brown, in this season, his apex is 116, which is really good for a freshman, 36th in FBS. Really, really nice breaks here. His first 3 games, his apex was a 19. And the last 2, his apex versus Rice and Navy is a composite 239, which means he's playing better than Caleb Williams in those 2 games. Now, Rice and Navy are not quite as good as ASU and Colorado, but, oh my gosh, I'd love to have my money on this guy in basically any game. Plus, for the entire season, he's rushing for over 100 yards per game. In the American Conference preview, our guy Josh at CFF Guys on whatever Twitter is called now, actually, he brought this guy up. I had never heard of him before, and he brought this guy up and said, watch out for him. He's a serious talent, and he's going to take off under Alex Golish, and he should have the starting job, by around October. And my gosh, check mark. So hats off to Josh for absolutely calling this out. Really well done on his end.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? They also did not horrible against Bama as well. That was more the defense than on the offense, though. And then they beat Navy. That was this game, and they've done pretty good. So, yeah, this is a sneakily not bad team, and I think. Our co-host called that straight up, and that was really good for him. That was really good of him. So, yeah,
and
great call there.
In part 2, we'll get to the strength of the conferences. The American is not that good of a conference. It's not crazy to say these. USF could make the American Conference title game. I think that Tulane's. I'd be shocked if they're not one team in there. But as far as the other team, that's wide open to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a very it's very interesting depending on who moves on from there, that exactly where that will fall. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oops, sorry. Jesus. Narduzzi Awards. Hey, guess who? He's back. I'm just gonna take award off. Just updating this because guess what? It's just more of the same crap. We have this awful quote just to say we were on the run the ball and we're going to be awesome because we didn't run enough with Mark Whipple here. You can see what our guy has done with the rushing attack. It's 115th now in all of FBS. That means that there's 16 teams worse than him. The Apex. Good job. It's up to 53 because when I did this slide a few weeks ago, it was down to 7. And their offensive rating is a -8. Great job. Why do I bring this up? Look what this run-heavy offense, because they're going to bully you and show you who's boss. Look what they did against Virginia Tech versus these other teams. Old Dominion, Purdue, There's two teams that just don't run the ball, even by accident. Rutgers is a good rushing team. I'll give you that. Marshall is a train wreck offensively in total. And all these teams ran for much more yardage and much more per play than Pitt. Look at this, 1.6 yards per attempt. Are you kidding me? This is what you've been pushing for? You finally got your guy in for his second year, and you're running for 1.6 yards per attempt against this defense? Are you kidding me? I don't get it. And now I'm hearing that, I again, hey, Pat Narduzzi might get the Michigan State job. It's like nobody checks stats. Nobody cares. Nobody watches game film. Nobody knows what's going on in terms of how good a team is. All we check is brands.
And that
Back
is
to you.
That is crazy, right? Like I saw that rumor too. If they somehow hire Pat Narduzzi for no reason at all, that is insane. That is completely nuts. Like, and this is the point where brand name and, oh, we know this guy because he did this or he was that before. It's gotten completely out of hand. Like, there is no reason he should probably be fired from this job, let alone be hired to a better job. I mean, it's debatable whether Michigan State is a better job than Pitt. I guess I'd put like slightly higher.
I think it's a better job. Yeah,
it's
I think
Big
it's a
Ten,
better
so
job.
it is.
Yeah.
I think for that reason alone, it's a better job. But like, it's not like it's like, oh man, definitely a better job. Like, it's like, okay, it's like a slightly better job. It's a step up, but not like it's not like a leap up from like when Urban Meyer went from Bowling Green to Florida or something. It's not that level of change. But this is the thing. It's like they are some of these programs, and again, we're basically seeing this is the point where certain coaches are on the hot seat, and then they're going to be up. Like basically, we're probably a couple weeks away from someone getting fired. I'm not sure who exactly will get fired first. Some people that I thought might have been getting fired are maybe not getting fired now. West Virginia, the head coach of West Virginia is particularly one of them. That one is an interesting one. I thought that one might be gone. They seem to have saved their job. The head coach of Florida there, Billy Napier, a little bit. I thought maybe there might be some more pressure on that, but after they beat Tennessee, they're fine now. No, it was a little bit, but like, I'm trying to think of like which jobs, and there's not a lot. Like, not
would have been Jeff Hafley until Tony Elliott, when everybody gets a participation trophy and just doesn't want to win.
Even then, that's kind of cooled down. But this is the thing, right? Michigan State, obviously, and Northwestern, those are the two big ones right now at this point. And like, it's hard to point to like, but they're gonna go with some big name, right? Like, it's gonna be like, watch, this will be like, oh, Georgia Southern had a good year. Let's hire Clay Helton because he was the head coach of USC, even though he was horrible at USC. But like, we get revenge against USC. We might play USC now if we're Michigan State or Northwestern. So let's hire him, right? Like, this is the level of search for some of these head coaches, right? And heck, even Auburn. I mean, okay, they kept close with Georgia with Hugh Freeze, but like, Liberty is terrifying. Like, again, and I made this point before, Auburn probably should have hired Jamie Chadwell rather than Hugh Freeze for their head coaching job, right? And then like, instead of him replacing Hugh Freeze, he should have taken the job Hugh Freeze was going to get, right? Like, when you look at head coaching decisions, so much of this is just brand names. They're like, oh, we need a big brand name to make recruits come, right? It's like, well, no, hire a good person, and then you don't have to worry about whether or not recruits are coming or not, right? So, I don't know. That's my rant on that as well. But it's
two things about that. Just
go ahead.
Just two things. First of all, I just want to make sure I have this correctly. This is a controversial take. Are you saying that the Auburn Athletic Department made a bad decision? I just want to make sure.
Yes, the Auburn Athletic Department, specifically them and the boosters, they both made a not great decision, suboptimal decision there.
Yeah,
among others.
Oh, you mean the 73 people that all think their athletic director made a bad decision?
Yes, they made a bad decision. That's pretty. Yeah, but this is the thing, right? And we criticize them every year, and they still keep making the same horrible decisions, right? And it's like, it'll never change. So this because they oh, we need a name, and this guy won games X years ago and this or something, and it's the same as coordinators, right? And the thing is, it gives us edges, right? Because we assign nothing, and in fact, many times a negative to some of these names, and they're like, oh, this name, okay, we're going to bet against that person, and we make money because sometimes they're the favorites, like they were against Virginia Tech for some unknown reason. No idea why they were the favorites against Virginia Tech, by the way. No idea, but they were. So yeah, now we won money off of that because that was again one of the two wrong team favorites that we had. They were in fact the wrong team favored. The other one was arguably close, and that was a really bad kind of beat there with that spread cover with Duke. But yeah, again, that was the right. Both of those were right calls. Those were both very good bets, and then unfortunately they did not pay out. But I think definitely Virginia Tech or Pittsburgh in that case was the wrong team favorite, and maybe the other one was close too. But
yeah. And then just to go back a little further too, I'm going to say Michigan State is a better job than Pitt just because Michigan State has two obscenely rich, stupid guys who thought it would be a good idea to give Mel Tucker a $90 million contract. So that makes it a better job. I don't know about if the program's better, but as for a job, yeah, it's better in that regard.
Yeah. And again, shout out to Mel Tucker basically doing the one thing he couldn't do in that entire case, which was giving, you have an ironclad contract because they were afraid of losing you after you had one really good running back go to the NFL. I was like, oh my God, we're going to lose him because he had one really good running back on staff when he came here. And so they gave him this ironclad contract. He did the one thing. He gave them an excuse to fire him for no cost. And that was what he did. Yeah. And it's like, with these coaches, right, and we talk about this, we talk about in terms of game theory and strategy and stuff. And it's like, well, oh, in football, you can't, in this game, our game plan is to not do this one thing, or we have to stop or limit as much time to do this. You have game plans and game theory as to what you do. And he did the one thing he was not supposed to do, which was basically give them cause to fire him. And that's what he did, and now, I mean, again, this is in no way justifying. What he did was horrible. I am not in any way justifying what he did. It was all horrible, but he was so dumb because he didn't have to, it was the one thing he couldn't do, and he would have just had a lot more money had he not done that stupid thing. So.
Yeah. It was a bag that was impossible to fumble, and he said, yeah, let's see.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, did you have an Narduzzi, by the way?
I mean, yeah, this kind of unfolded earlier today, and I don't particularly want to drag politics into this, but I have to give a Narduzzi Award to the former Republican Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. I mean, here's the thing: we talk about how bad some of these coaches do in their jobs, and again, Kevin McCarthy has put them all to shame this week in just his tremendous job of completely screwing over not just members of his own party, members of all parties. It's just the worst ever management job I've ever seen in my entire life. One, he signs agreements with the far right of his party on how to conduct business going forward. Okay, fine. Completely backs out from that, ignores all that stuff. That's great. Good job there. So these people, remember, they held out for 15 ballots so he couldn't become speaker. Then they finally gave up, let him become speaker because he agreed to all these things. Immediately backtracks on that. Great. That's how you do business here. Then, secondly, he then to pass government funding, he then passes a government funding bill that relies on 204 Democrats to pass it. Only 100 and some odd Republicans passed it. So 300 votes for, which was enough to pass it. But he needed the vast majority of Democrats to pass it to even keep the government funding, which is the only reason the government is still running today. And that's fine. And then, so he does that on Saturday, and then on Sunday has the audacity to go on Face the Nation and then say, oh, I didn't know if it was going to pass because the Democrats didn't want to pass it, so I didn't know if it was going to pass. Basically, immediately biting the hand that saved his ass the day before. And then, because he went back on his deal with the far right in his party, because he also gave them the power to, if only one person wanted to put forth a motion to kick him out as speaker, they did that. And then he then said, oh, bring it on, to Matt Gaetz, the person who brought the thing, to which Matt Gaetz did bring it on, and then they called for the vote today, and then his allies went to Democrats and said, oh, you're gonna vote to keep me as speaker, right? And they're like, no, you just accused us of trying to shut down the government, which we bailed your ass out of to fix you for that. So, no, you're done now. And then they're like, oh, well, yeah, we're done now. And sure enough, he got kicked out as speaker. And basically a couple hours before we filmed this podcast, he had a thing saying, yeah, he's not going to be speaker anymore. So absolutely the worst game management decisions I've ever... rivaling some of the worst game decisions I've seen on a college football field easily. Again, I don't particularly want to bring politics into this, but I think we can all just admire how horrible of a job Kevin McCarthy has done in just the last week alone, but just this entire time. Just, again, horrible game management, horrible decision making. And then again, the absolute masterclass of basically attacking the only people who could save you from yourself, and then being like, "Nope, I don't need your help," and then they turn on him, and then he's done. So, congratulations. Arguably the worst, the basically worst Narduzzi job we've seen all season goes to the now former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, I'm taking some notes here. So I got horrible game management and decision making. To go back to my point, I think he might be the next offensive coordinator for Pitt. Kind of.
Yeah, you know what? That could work. Well, he actually the best part in his press conference was they're like, "Oh, are you going to leave Congress now?" And he's like, "I actually hadn't thought of that." So he's basically saying, "Yes, I'm going to leave," because he only cared about being speaker. And now that he's not speaker, he's going to take his ball and go home. So maybe he'll be offensive coordinator for some college football team in the near future.
Yeah,
so who
we
knows?
can use him as kind of like we can use him as our kind of judgment if somebody's doing a really bad job. It's like, well, Kevin McCarthy's available; he might have that job now.
That is true. Yeah, be like someone makes a horrible fourth down decision, be like, Kevin McCarthy could have made a better call there. Come on, guys,
yeah,
what are we doing?
He wouldn't have screwed that up. Let's go. Come on.
Yeah.
All right. Noted for future reference. Just the other things that I saw during the week that I wanted to get out there just to kind of remember for future. My guy, Jordan McLeod, just vindicated my belief in him in 2021. 5-0, 137 apex. Keep it up, my man. Arkansas. I wonder if my buddy on Twitter is, I think he might have blocked me actually. He said the Arkansas running game was fine after they got like 4 yards per rush against Kent State. Well, now they're down to 3.3, and they got 1.1 against Texas A&M. Great job. Hope he's enjoying that. That's really something to be proud of there. Other items. We've licked our wounds about Notre Dame, and that was a brutal beat. Having said that, as we both had Jacksonville State given under 7, that covered, and it covered for 0 minutes and 0 seconds of official game time. It covered for basically 4 untimed downs. So yay for us. San Diego State, after the 10-49 loss to Air Force, they are officially dead.
I will say this. This was the victory lap I wanted to take. My biggest bet of the entire weekend was Air Force minus 10.5. Yeah. Not even close. Not even remotely close. My only regret for that was the fact that because I forgot to do this. I forgot to go in and bet an alt line of like minus 21. That's my one regret. That I didn't just like start betting massive stuff on alt lines. I forgot to do that. That's on me. That's a misplay there. But no, And again, my call on that was, and I think I gave that play out. I think it was either a combined model play or I gave that out last week. It was literally like
you did.
I said, I said San Diego State could not stop Boise's rush offense, which is horrible. There is 0% chance they could stop Air Force's rushing attack. And I remember we said this, but I definitely thought this. I'm like, they could run for like 300 or 400 yards. They ran for like 297 yards. So that was just. It's just a slaughter. And still, they still passed for like 100 yards. Shout out to Air Force, like adapting to offensive concepts. Good job. You don't even need to, though. You just ran for 300 yards. But you're just like, we're just going to pass for style points, too.
Yep. So, Brady Hoke, I know we were on this last season. I said this is not going the right way. I'm pronouncing him officially dead. And dead adjacent is Boise State, as their 2 wins this season are North Dakota and the now deceased San Diego State. So not much better. Fittingly, among the, on the topic of dead, Boise State dead money in the championship of the Mountain West pool, as I've been calling them all season long. I think it's going to come to an end for them really quickly here. I think you might have mentioned this. West Virginia's only loss is at Penn State. Now, they haven't really had a great win, but they're 3-1. My model doesn't like them because they haven't beaten anybody good. But, as Neil Brown was expected to be fired after last season, good for him for getting it together, at least somewhat. Their schedule's really easy. They only play like one good team the rest of the way. It's Oklahoma. They literally have a decent chance in every other game. They could win 9 games this season. Grayson McCall, hey, this is not a surprise. 4 interceptions against a okay Georgia Southern defense. Like I said before the season, maybe I should have put this under victory laps. Tim Beck is going to ruin Grayson McCall most likely, and my God, that happens. 4 interceptions against Georgia Southern. That's not something you're going to see a lot these days. App State, it needs to be pointed out, this is not your father's App State team that basically was, going to win 9 or 10 games, winning games 24-21, holding guys to, no more than 3 scores. ULM is really a horrible program for years now. And App State beat them 41-40. Something's not right there. This latest coach just I don't think he's really the right guy for the program. I don't know if he's in trouble, but it's not the same App State that Sunbelt fans like me are used to seeing as an established brand. Boy, did you see any of this? I just saw highlights. Georgia Tech losing at home by 11 to Bowling Green.
Yeah. They were like 21-point favorites, or I think it was even higher than that. It was just huge favorites in this game.
Yeah.
And this is the thing now, and people will say, it's extremely questionable. Georgia Tech had been pretty good. They covered the spread against Louisville. They were hanging late against Ole Miss, and then Ole Miss lost to Bama. But now this starts again. This is why my model is not particularly high on Bama and even Ole Miss, because it's like, okay, well, now that is in there. So then, okay, they lost to Georgia Tech lost to Bowling Green, and that was a team that Ole Miss beat. That was a team that Louisville beat. So it's when you look at this, it's now saying like this is something that other people will never. They'll never notice this in, like, when you look at the polls, right? They'll never be like, oh, well, Bama beat a team that beat Georgia Tech, but that Georgia Tech team just lost to a Bowling Green, right? So therefore that should be demoted, but Bama won last week, so they're going to gain a spot or two, right? That's how the poll works, but that's not how my model works, which is my model is correct in that. So by demoting some of your earlier wins, now it cleans that up. So yeah, no, the Georgia Tech one is fascinating. I thought they were on the right track. Again, Bowling Green randomly pulls up upset sometimes, so it's not necessarily the worst thing. But yeah, that's a very interesting result there, and just completely not even remotely in, like, such a weird result as in terms of, like, just that was not supposed to happen at all. But we always get some of those every year, which is what makes this sport fun. So
Yeah, you remember last year or during the preview, the ACC preview, and we talked about last year. I don't know if you remember this. There was like nothing about Georgia Tech's results after they fired Jeff Collins that made sense. It's like they had 4 really good wins and 4 bad losses. It's like nothing made sense. It's every game that they won, they should have lost, and every game that they lost, they probably should have won considering who they beat. It makes no sense at all. The other thing is, even after that game, even after Bowling, this is so crazy. Even after Bowling Green scored 38 on the road against a Power 5 team, I still have only the 5th best or the 5th worst offense in all of FBS, even after that, including that game. That's unforgivable. And so I'm credit to Key for demoting his defensive coordinator, and clearly he made a bad hire to begin with if that's going on. I mean, my gosh. And we'll talk about it in part 2, but the MAC is not a good conference this season. Speaking of the MAC, Western Michigan, just to refresh your memory, towards the end of last year, Western Michigan, the whole situation there between Mr. Bourget, one of the Bourgets, and a guy named Jack Sapolek, I think is his name, they were just like taking turns being just like the worst quarterbacks in the MAC. I actually have them as a 3rd best offense now under this new first-year guy. I got to look into more on him. That's really impressive. Just kind of keep a note for that for next season. Is we're seeing a very early proof of concept in Western Michigan. Again, this team was just the butt of all quarterback jokes on this podcast last year. And lastly, I was in late afternoon Pacific time. It would have been evening your time. During the South Carolina-Tennessee game, I was making a London Caesar salad for my wife and frying up some bacon. So I didn't see this. I only heard it from the kitchen. South Carolina tried a fake punt in the Tennessee game. and they converted, and then they kept their punt squad on the field for the first down. Now, what happened was, unfortunately, there was a Tennessee player that was hurt, so they called an injury timeout, and Shane Beamer was really upset. I'm dying to know what would have happened. I'm just kind of keeping a little pin in this one for later. I want to see what happens with if/when they try this again, and what happens on part 2 of that. What do they do with their punt team out there after they convert a fake punt?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. That's like, I can't even imagine what they would have done. Would they have like, because did they, what was it? Was it fourth and what did they convert? Fourth and what?
Fourth and chilled beets in the salad. I don't know. I kind of like just
okay. Yeah. So I mean, I'd assume you wouldn't put the punt team out there to run on first down. You'd assume some sort of trick play, right? Some sort of like pass, because there's no reason to like do QB draw, right? Like,
or maybe they've got like one of those wide receivers that can play wildcat quarterback. I don't know. This is why I'm dying to I don't know. So
maybe jet sweep on a punt, like a punt returner, or like one of your return men jet sweep. Maybe that could be a potential option.
Well, it wouldn't be a return guy; it'd be like cover guy. I don't know.
Cover guy, yeah. Sorry, cover guy, jet sweep. That's potential. If you got a guy that's really, really fast but can't catch a ball, you're like, well, just give him the ball.
Yeah, I don't know. So this is not something I think I actually said this quite the opposite in our SEC preview. I might have to watch some South Carolina football just to see if this happens again. I don't know.
And South Carolina is such a weird team, right? Cannot get the job done against North Carolina. Keeps it close against Georgia. I believe Tennessee won and covered against them as well, right? So, like, such a weird up and down team where it's like, oh, we've got some cool stuff, but then also we're not good at times too. Just a very weird year for South Carolina. And again, just kind of circling that Georgia might not be that good, right? Like, we're like, oh, Georgia played this team close, and they played this team close, and they played this team close. I mean, the look ahead for Georgia versus Kentucky on FanDuel was Kentucky plus 23.5. It's down to 14 now. That line is evaporated. I'm looking at this. I'm like, yeah, give me more Kentucky. Like, I'm like, I still want Kentucky here. That line is nuts. I think Georgia is not good at all, and I think they're kind of destined for some losses here.
Let me check my notes. Yeah, last week you said 7-5. I have that written down right here.
Well, they won. So 8-4 now. 8-4. Okay. They won though, so that's the thing. No, I mean the thing is, like, to be fair, I didn't actually say that. I never said 8-5. To be fair, but I did say though that they could have trouble against. Yeah, I know you were joking. Again, I don't want to be put up on a message board somewhere in Athens. But no, I said they could have a tough time with Florida. Could have a tough time with Kentucky, with Tennessee. I don't think I mentioned Kentucky, but they've got Kentucky now, so they could have a tough time with Kentucky too. Some sports books offer Georgia under 11.5 right now. Kind of like that. I mean, it's juiced, significantly juiced to the under.
Yeah.
But, like, they lose one. I wouldn't even hate it all, like, under 10.5, to be honest with you. I feel like they could lose another one, too. I think they have someone across Division 2, I think. I can't remember who, but I think they play someone. I'm not sure if it's LSU. I don't think it's LSU. Let me check to see who that is. But I think they play someone cross division, I think.
You know what game I don't know if we've ever had is Georgia versus A&M. That just sounds like a game I don't know if we've ever had.
Well, because the SEC is designed weird.
Yeah.
Nope, they don't play anybody. Oh, Mississippi. They play Ole Miss. That's kind of concerning.
That'll be interesting, yeah. That could be a matter of, I don't know, that's kind of a more extreme version of like, you know, Washington and Oregon versus USC. Okay, this team is probably going to get their points. Can you slow them down enough? Interesting. Yeah, good call. All right. Mm-hmm. So, unless you have anything else, is that the end of part 1? I
believe that is the end of. We did record time that time. We're getting better at this.
End of part
We're
one.
good.
Robert says Georgia's going 8-4. Noted. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We will see you in part two.
See ya.